Hey guys, hey everybody. Let's lower down the tunes a little bit. Double check on the sound check. Everything seems to be fine. And another Thursday, another Webflow SEO stream. Today we'll be talking about, you know what? Before I jump into what we're talking about today, next week I will be away traveling a little bit. So we either gonna schedule something or there's not gonna be a stream. So keep following the news. And the week after that, we're talking with Uros from Flow Ninja about you'll check the channel to see what we're talking about. It's going to be insanely awesome. That stream, I'm waiting so much. But before that, today we also have something really amazing. And today we're talking about, and I see Felix already here, which I was kind of waiting because he said he's going to be here. So yeah, so Felix had an idea because this week we wanted to chat about something that you guys suggest, and Felix suggested something actually. So let's look into that. And I just showed our guest. All right, so I'm muting you. That was not
Hello.
that was not the way I planned it. So let's jump to the guest. So today we have Alessia. Am I saying this right? Alessia?
Yes, Alessia.
Alessia. Okay. And for those who don't know, follow her on Twitter. She publishes so much awesome content. She's a startup mentor, which I'm going to ask about. And then she's also co-founder of Code and Wonder, which is a Framer and Webflow development agency. And I added here 3 fine, awesome links that she runs. One of them is Flow Tools, so do check that out if you want to find some good resources. We're just going to ask her about that soon. And then we have Code and Wonder, her agency. Check that out as well. And she has her own classes naming system, which is, again, something to really chat it out. So welcome, Alessia. Welcome to the stream. Hey,
Thanks
there.
for having me.
So introduce yourself to those who don't know who you are, and let's dig into the good stuff.
Sure. So like you said, I'm Alessia. I'm the co-founder of Code and Wonder. So we're a digital agency. We do design and development of anything digital, really. So websites, apps, web apps, anything which is on the web, we can kind of do. And we work a lot with startups, creating MVPs or minimal viable product, just to test and iterate on their idea. But we also work with a lot of corporates with their marketing teams, just to create new landing pages, campaigns, anything like that.
Okay. And do you guys specialize in some sort of niche field, area, type of client, series, funding series type, or any type of that, or country, region, city, maybe?
You know what? Everyone asks me that, but we don't. We just like, if it fits in terms of what you need and what we do, then we go for it. We've noticed, because a lot of our clients actually come from word of mouth or like inside recommendations, that we started to notice a few clusters in terms of industries that it's happening. So weirdly enough, we have a lot of football related companies that we've worked with.
For those watching in America, that's soccer. For us watching in Europe, that's football.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we're open to all sports anyway, so yeah.
Okay. Continue.
And then what else? Yeah, a lot of also kids tools and charities, which was really nice to work with as well.
I have a question. I put it down while looking at your site. What about planting trees? Like, tell me about this part. Like, what's happening here? Like, do you guys really plant trees? Like, the whole agency just goes on Saturdays to parks and plant trees, or what's happening here?
I wish that would be a fun thing to do, like on the weekend, just like digging holes and plant new trees. But we donate to a charity that plants trees. so we don't physically do it. But yeah, every month we kind of offset all of our CO2, and yeah, every time we launch new sites, we also make donations to that. So they have quite a few good causes as well. So it's not just planting trees, but it's helping local people in rural areas. And yeah, that's kind of what it means. I didn't put much on the site, did I? Didn't explain it that well.
I mean, it's something you notice, and I was joking. I know what that means, but in theory, like, it's just fun to see that you guys have all that included inside working with you, which is like awesome. Sounds like amazing. If I would be a potential client, that sounds like, oh, you guys are thinking broader than just like cash grab and make sites and leave you be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's an icebreaker. It's like, hey, come plant trees with us,
So before we begin, I wanted to ask like a little bit, how did you got into this world of web design, web development? You say you're a co-founder. I assume not really. You don't mention designer or developer. So first about that, you don't mention on Twitter designer or developer. Tell us about that part.
So I think it's because I never see myself as just like a designer or a developer. So I know the basic skills. I know what makes a good design. I know the basics of HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript kind of thing, but I would never call myself a developer just because I don't think my knowledge goes deep enough to call myself that. And same with design. So my background is more in project management. So before starting Code and Wonder, I used to work at another agency as a project manager. So coordinating all the different clients and projects. That's, a bit of jack of all trades in that term.
Yeah, I love how, that it's not the whole story, jack of all trades, master of none. You know how it ends,
I heard it a few times, but you can remind me.
It says the full sentence is jack of all trades, master of none, but usually better than master of one, which is, why did humanity forget half of that?
I know, it's the best important part. Because then we just focus on the negative. It's like, wow, jack of all trades, master of none. It's like, yeah, that's the negative part. What about the positive part at the end?
And especially in the current day and age, and especially with AI showing up, I think it's becoming more and more. So I wanted to ask, startup mentor, what does that mean? What?
Okay, so my journey is not a straight line. So, how I said before this, I used to work in another digital agency. So before that, I used to run a product startup, which was dedicated to discovering new music before, Spotify Weekly and all of that came out. So I entered this like startup world, and I went through quite a few accelerators and incubators. And now and then they still invite me back as a mentor. So I do that on the weekend for university incubators, but also more like widely incubators. Now and then I spent an afternoon talking to startups, which is always fun.
Oh, so these are like young school kids, or any type of just whoever wants to talk to you? Like, how does that part, what's your typical, who are you talking to?
So usually it's organized by the university. So these are between the age of, 18 and 30, whoever goes to uni, and they have an idea. They might have been through a few lectures about how to start a business or a few events, but they still don't see a path, or they might need some hand-holding. So we have a chat and give them a few ideas of like what to look next, or how to, validate a product. A lot of people are scared to put their idea out there, especially at the very beginning. And they're like, oh, but people are gonna copy my idea, or it's not going to work. But it's always best to put your ideas out there and test them and talk to people, see if what like your assumptions are actually valid, or you're just, basing it on your own experience and your mom, for example. And see if, if you're actually solving a real problem, if more people have that same problem. So it's actually how to bring that idea out there in a way that you can gather information and see whether you might have to pivot or just keep going down that path. And grow.
That's that's a lesson that all of us have to learn sooner or later. That the sooner you put it out there, the better and the faster it grows.
Yeah. What's the other saying? If your product is too polished, you launch too late, something like that.
Somebody on Twitter the other week, or if you had something like, if you went completely too harsh on this, if you have copy launched this, like, I don't know, it was something like, if you have a website you launched too soon, or I don't know, it was like, I don't remember now, but there's so many variations of this thing where you can polish it out. All right. So last two things before we jump into today's topic. I wanted to also ask you about Flow class and Webflow resources, or just Flow tools. These two are just, can you pick one, first one, whichever is your most favorite link out there, and let us know what it is, and kind of let's look into that.
So both of them kind of were created for like our internal use, so for the Code and Wonder team. But then I thought, why not just share them and open it up? Like, if it's useful for us, surely it's useful for other people. So putting them out there. So Webflow resources or Flow tools.
You can find it there in their site. All right, let's go there. And
it says there, a collection of resources created by the community. So because Webflow has such an awesome community, and everyone is just creating new tools and new ways of doing things, but I always felt that they're in their own websites. Right, so you have FinSuite with their attributes, which are just like awesome. You have Refocus, you have like all these different agencies and creators which are creating tools. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of where everything is. So I kind of created Flow tools just to keep all of the resources created by all these amazing people in one website, and you can search through them, filter through them, and then each resource actually brings you to the creator's website. So you can follow any tutorials or any step-by-step guide from them. But it's just an easy way to search through them and have them all in one place that you can see.
That's awesome. All right. And the other one is coming back to your site.
The other one is classes. So it's a naming convention that we adopted at Code and Wonder, which is more based on components rather than pages, I guess. And so it's just like how to name classes within Code and Wonder so that everyone is on the same page. And we often jump on different websites so everyone can pick up where we left off, even if they didn't start or create that website, and kind of bringing everything together. I just documented everything by layout, by structure, by spacing, and there's a few examples in there, but basically what it does is you have a component, and what I mean by component is a section of the site that gets used multiple times throughout the website, and everything which is inside that component starts with the component name and then underscore whatever it is that you're naming.
That's awesome. That's I like this. I actually like the layout, like how this is set up, and it seems like very understandable. Love it. So do guys check it out. If you forget where I just found this, just go to Code and Wonder. They have it up top in the navbar, both links. So just feel free to check it out. And by the way, if you guys have any questions for Alessia, put them in the comments below. And Felix already kind of has a question, so you can read it out loud and just answer. Or
cool. Yeah, I'm a very slow reader. So,
okay. So I'm gonna read it while you're reading on your own.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Felix says, been checking out Flow Class. I think that's where I'm starting to gravitate towards. Basically a fork of client first, right? Less utility classes and more custom names. That's a good summary. So that's the question.
I guess so. So I think nothing or very little that people create now is new, right? Everything stems from something. So I really loved, especially like version 1 of Client First. And that's where like kind of gave me the idea. I thought I started using Client First and they're absolutely awesome. This is just an alternative. I'm not saying not to use anything. But I find it sometimes a bit restricting. So a lot of the sites that we build are very custom, and layouts or grids often, even if you start with like, let's say a 3-column layout, and you have a few of those on the site, when you go to mobile, it often doesn't follow the same structure. Some of them might reduce the columns, or some might not. And so we started like stacking classes, and we all know how that goes. It's not ideal. It's very hard to maintain. So then we started creating custom classes, but then we found that, we needed a structure for those custom names. And that's where Flow Class kind of was born. But also kind of is based on, I don't know if you heard of like the BEM class naming, which was, I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, from an actual like CSS class naming structure. So it's based a little bit on that and kind of merging the two. And yeah, so it's taking inspirations from lots of different ways.
Wow, that sounds awesome. You mentioned, and then we really jump into this. You mentioned first client first was better. You didn't say that. But you mentioned you liked first client first, as in second client first is something that you guys didn't completely follow through, or like, would you say why the first client first?
I mean, these are all like my personal opinions, so I want to put that in front. I think they also changed the spacing. So I think in V2, they now have like spacing blocks, which I find from a visual perspective, when you go through the DOM or like the HTML structure, it adds divs, which I don't think are necessary. So I like to, most of the time, do the spacing with gap. So either flex gap or grid gap. Without having to add, divs for every space that you want. And they're like little things like that I thought, actually, I might, steer away from pure client first and kind of tweak it and make it my own.
Okay, makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, I get the vibe of everything is a div, way too many divs, unnecessarily amount of divs, but but I love that there's so many systems coming out, and in the end, even if you use client first or use Flow Class or whatever you would use, you still kind of adapt it to your own vibes eventually. Yep. Which is what I love, that there's so many different now showing up, because then you can just actually read through them, look through them, and find the tidbits that you kind of just migrate to your way of working without necessarily adopting the whole only this, no other things, because it's always just it's just a story that we tell ourselves to keep things organized, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing which is important is that the naming kind of represents what it actually is. So if you're calling something, I don't know, a title, don't put it on a button, like so as long as it represents where that class, or like what that class kind of properties are, or where it should be applied to, then that's the best way.
Yeah, and let's read through 2 comments. So Sergey says, yeah, he agrees that flow class is very easy to understand, and definitely will try to use it on next project. So he's thanking you for a great system.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. I'm always open to suggestions and comments. So that would be interesting. Yeah.
And Felix also noticed that he's also using more BEM inside client first. So seems like you had an idea there that kind of makes all the sense in the world. But enough about class naming. Let's jump to today's topic. Let me locate all of that. And all right, coming back to the Figma board we had. If you feel like, you can jump into where it is, but let's so this whole stream started from this tweet from Twitter, and Peter was saying, yo, we're making the sitemap and the draft, and I love this part. I think everybody loves this part, right? Planning what you're gonna build with your clients, right? This is awesome. Like, how do you guys do it? Does it look the same when you work with clients, or you would say no, or
similar? So yeah, it starts with a conversation with a client. A lot of the time I find, well, I guess it depends by the client, but some of them actually have this, which is great to see, and then kind of like present it to us and be like, oh, this is what we're looking for. This is the list of pages that we want. And it makes it so much easier for like scoping and estimating and all of that. But a lot of the time it's just, I would like a site, and then ... So yes, it's a conversation, understanding, what they want from their site and what's the goal. And then, we create a similar structure in terms of what are the pages that we think they should have.
And we mentioned, like, sometimes they have it. When they have it, like, do they have like internal marketing teams, or it's more of a CEO decided that we need about page and we need this and then we need, or we looked at, like, how does that usually sound when they already come to you with that? Because that's, I think, less common thing.
We have all of it. So sometimes if it's a small startup, yes, it will be the founder that has a very clear idea of what they want. Sometimes it's the marketing team. Sometimes it's the product team that suggests as well. So yeah, it can come from lots of different places. I think it's more when the team kind of understands web and websites, that they have sitemaps. Sometimes they don't, and therefore they need a bit more guidance to create it.
Okay, so let's move to that part. So, by the way, Felix is now watching this live. So at some other thread, when I was asking, hey, what you guys want me to do this week, he said, hey, do you want to maybe answer these questions? And when I saw this tweet, I had very straightforward questions about how do you deal with internal linking planning at this stage and search intent-based heading structures? Because we're going to get to this, because if I ever forget, Felix, in the comments, remind me about this tweet, okay? Because I really want to answer that part, but we have to get there why we need it. So I'm not starting now, but we will get there. So, and then of course, like current meta of the world is, we ended up with a great AI suggestion of what kind of build we should be doing and analyzing this, because it's really hard to talk about stuff like that without having an actual problem at hand. And now we have. So I'm going to just read it out loud. I think I have it here. I even made a logo for it. So it was so we're thinking about a sitemap, and we're gonna continue on this stream to kind of do it about Taskmaster, which is a task management SaaS company. Taskmaster provides a user-friendly platform for individuals and teams to manage their tasks and projects efficiently. The platform allows users to create and assign tasks, set deadlines, track progresses, and communicate with team members. So basically, we're talking the ClickUps, Notions, Asanas, Trellos, and I'm probably missing like 300 others of the world. And then key features are task lists, calendar integration, time tracking, project templates, reporting tools. Users can customize their dashboards, get quick overview of their tasks. Platform also offers mobile apps for Android and iOS. And then we also have, what else? And the last thing is, of course, so Taskmaster's goal is to help individuals and teams stay organized, productive, accountable. Platform is ideal for small to medium-sized businesses, startups, freelancers, anyone who wants to manage their workload effectively. So streamline your workflow, reduce the workload, and achieve your goals faster. That's literally what it is. So what do you think about our task at hand today?
So yeah, I mean, that sounds like a lot of the briefs that come through. I mean, I wish they were that succinct and to the point.
It's very dense, right? It's really well written.
It is. So we get two types of brief. Either it's one sentence that doesn't tell us much, or it's like pages, which is like very detailed but spread out. So no, this is great. And I think, so my SEO knowledge is quite basic. So I'm like, my first instinct for this is to like tackle it from a more user experience point of view, or more like funnel, or like, okay, what do we want from the site? What's the goal? It's probably to get more signups, it's probably to get people using the product. So I think all of my thought process were on that side, but I'd be super curious to hear how you would tackle it from a more like SEO content perspective.
Yeah, so this is like very great points, and I wrote them down. I even can make them a little bit bigger, maybe not that big. So of course, this is like any designer or dev team, or usually they should start with this, and that's great because they're thinking about what you just said: funnel, UI, UX, signups. It's a very good strategy because in the beginning you have to understand what you're doing with the site. That's why it's great. That's why you guys have processes for that. You have discoveries for that. There's so much tools to force that out of the client, even if they cannot provide you this accurate description of what they want to do, right? So that's something that I witness all the time. That's cool. Knowing the funnel, knowing the problems that the client will have, which I would say like user experience, is that solving that problem, as in assuming, oh, if client is here for something, they probably have certain things they're thinking about. How do we solve for that, right? That's something you probably think a lot, right?
Yeah, so it's like, what problem are we trying to solve, and how can we kind of describe that or bring that to life for users or like clients or potential customers to buy in?
All right. I think the opposite. Completely. I start from the opposite. And last week we had Jay on the podcast. Check it out on the stream. Check it out. Last week's video, guys, if you're not watching this. He's a conversion expert. So he's thinking about funnels. He's a Webflow conversion expert developer, that kind of guy. And same here, like agencies should be thinking about it, but I think from completely, and we were joking on that stream that we're two opposite poles of a team when we're working on a site, because he's thinking about straight to the point, no text, literally just tell them the problem, show them that their life will be improved by this amount, by this number, by this, whatever, prove with a testimonial that it's legit. and then get them click on it. And my is the opposite. Where do you get these people?
Which is super important, right? Because even if you have an amazing funnel, if no one is looking at it, then what's the point?
Yes, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug. If you don't know what we are, Content Next is a content and SEO agency, and we do exactly that. Our homepage legit says that. It's like websites that nobody visits make no money, and the second headline we have is websites are never done, because these are two things we believe in. And so let's go to the point where how do I think opposite? But before, let's jump into, like, I had a tweet that kind of where I showed this idea of how content strategist thinks about information architecture and how a designer or developer, I think, thinks. You can correct me if my assumption is wrong, but with now thinking about the left side, right? Is this something you imagine when you hear information architecture?
Close enough, I guess.
What's missing? Because I just bumped it out.
I mean, I'm not sure what that's representing, but if we're talking about sitemaps,
no, just in theory, like, because when people say designers send me an information architecture, I usually see the and hey, what's up, Raymar? Thanks for joining. So when people say information architecture, I imagine like they're planning what kind of type of content will go into which block, on which page, on which section.
So like wireframes, usually like black and white or gray, right?
Oh yeah. So you don't use colors?
I mean, we do, because I find gray so sad. But
I'll show you why you need to use colors. Otherwise, it's
well, what I usually tell the client about wireframes is don't focus on how it looks, but just focus what it says or the functionality that it has. Because a lot of the time, especially when you ask for feedback, clients go on and on. It's like, oh, it's not the right shade of blue or whatever it is. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to focus on the content here. So like, forget about colors and shapes and just let's see what actually needs to be on the page. And then depending on that, I mean, it's a debate. It's a chicken and egg scenario of what comes first, the content or the design. And I think wireframes sometimes are a little in the middle. So it's like, oh, okay, we have all this content. How can the layout fit the content, but also can be tweaked according of what you have on the page?
Yeah, I just started kind of daydreaming with a few nightmares when you said like it reminds me of clients not understanding what a prototype or a wireframe is. And that's a really bad place to be as a professional. So I know the struggle, like really, that hurts just a little bit. So, okay, so colors you're not using. All right. So you prepared something. You want to explain? You can jump in with your mouse. I can follow you because we done gonna chat of how I would approach the same problem and what's the thing. If you want to jump in with your mouse through your computer, that would be awesome. If you need the link, I can share this with you again in our chat.
Oh, that would be great.
And that's faster, right? So this is the link. So you can explain to everybody. I'm just going to try to find the perfect positioning so we see those. Yeah, we see now everything. All right. So run us through what happened here.
So what I did is kind of I read the brief. And then because it's a block of text, I always work better if it's a bit more visual. So I broke it down in what I would think first, okay, what are the important parts, which is what's the main goal of your product? So what are we actually advertising on this site, which is, a platform for individuals and teams to manage their tasks and projects. So that's kind of like the product that we're like designing for. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, these are not in order actually, but it's who are we targeting? So like, who is this product for? Which it said like small, medium-sized businesses, startups, and freelancers. So it's like, okay, so we have this product for these people, and the site goal is, and this is just my assumption from the brief, we want people to convert and have more like signups. People start using our product, sign up kind of thing. And then what we're offering. So like the list of features that were mentioned in the brief. So I kind of like broke it down into those 4 sections so that it would be a little bit clearer for me in my head to see what are the most important things. I know that you have a completely different idea on where to start probably. But from a product perspective, that's where I would start. And then, breaking down, this is not a final sitemap, but just a mind map for me is like, okay, what do we need? Obviously, everything has a homepage. And then it might be like a list of features that we want to dig a little bit deeper. Maybe we're grouping a few. For example, if we're talking about tasks, we can, mention about deadlines and progress and time tracking and all of that. And mention chat and how that benefits the teams. We've got integrations, different templates that you can create, different dashboard that you can set up. So kind of like clusters of features of what's important. But then because you're trying to create a funnel, it's always important to know who you're designing for. So maybe this whole list of feature 50% might be attractive for freelancers, but actually the rest is not that great. So creating like landing pages for the specific audiences, listing, specific features or specific case studies, previous clients for, that target. So we find that the conversion for that page would be higher because you can relate to whatever problem they're trying to solve and how it was beneficial for other companies like you or other freelancers like you, depending which one you're looking at. So yeah, that was like my very initial, like top of my head, how I would go ahead and kind of like structure this. Obviously, it's very vague at the moment. But yeah.
And so these points are like sections in your site, right? That's sections on your page. So it would be homepage, and then we have like sections that follow in this order. That's like roughly how you think about things. Is that correct? Or
yeah, so I only did that for the homepage. And then these one would be like separate pages. So I would have one page for business, one page for startup, one page for freelancers, kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, I find the homepage, because it's one, just breaking it down into, the usual funnel where you have, the hero that needs to be super straight to the point. And in one sentence, people need to understand what problem you're solving and what you're offering. A little bit of validation. We all seen those like strips of logos going past the screen. Who else is using your product? And, like, are you just starting out or are you a bit more established? It's kind of like that feel to it. And then it could have like different call to action. So it's like, oh, are you an individual or are you a team? And then you can click to the relevant landing pages. So to like just guide you through that journey that you want them to take. And then you can mention like some maybe top features, testimonials, and then call to action to sign up, that sort of thing.
All right. That's awesome.
And I know you're laughing because you're
no,
like,
no, I'm not laughing because I'm gonna thinking because I'm not
different.
gonna giving. All right, I'm not laughing. I'm actually so excited to see that this is exactly what I kind of was expecting, and this is so awesome because I don't care about any of those things. That's like the magic of this. That you would say, yeah, but you should care. But we'll get there. And Felix is already saying, very much in line with your thinking, was the goal to kind of get, okay, so this is how it should be approached, right?
Yeah.
But what happens if you add SEO to it? Like what changes? All right, let me try to run through the same process. And then Anybody in the comments, ask any questions, whatever. I'm going to notice them probably, or Alessia will. And then Alessia, stop me at any point if you have any questions or whatever, because I want this to be an like entertaining experience where if you have any kind of idea or question or don't get anything, then it would be way much more, I think, feedback, because everybody watching this think the same way you do. And I don't.
I'm going to ask lots of why. So yeah, go for it.
So the way I see this is you started from the head of your octopus, which is your homepage, right?
Yes.
And then you started building those tentacles of it, what needs to be, right? And these are, imagine I can draw better than that, but, and I start only from this part. I think, what are the tentacles? Where do they end? So I think about homepage last, because I don't know what's going to be on it until I know each one of these tentacles. Now you're probably going to already ask me what, so let's move to what. So in this scenario, usually thinking starts from features, and each one of these will have its own page, right? Does that make any sense? They should be, right? We have to have a page for about tasks. Working with me is a little bit harder in this sense, because I usually, when I draft sitemaps, I start by just, wait one sec, let me prepare the meta card and then we're gonna move faster. So I usually start from just the CMS type. So in this case, most CMSs, and when I say CMS, I mean CMS collection. But I just say CMS, okay? Let's establish that part. So you think in CMSs that you will need, and they usually come in 2s, 3s, 5s, 6s, or whatever it is, rarely above 6, to form a content cluster. Now, that means that there's, for example, 2 main CMSs to run any SaaS typical features block, which would mean one of this is, one of the CMSs are features, and that would be like a group collection, right? So here it would be, wait, let me grab the...
So would it be kind of like, if you're talking about tasks, that would be features, and then the single one would be time tracking, for example?
It would be collaboration, right? And then, like that. And then it would be, usually there's like 4, 6 or something. So your groups of things that you can group these features into, let's just make this simple, copy a few things. So, for example, wait one sec. All right, so communicate with team members, and let's say there was chat as well, right? This might be the same feature, this might be a different feature, but you would add these as features within the collaboration feature group, right? So on your homepage, this would mean there's on your homepage, this would mean you click on collaboration if you want to learn more about it, and there would be, and if we take this page, eventually how it would look, it would just have cards listed out to those, let's call them sub features. Does that make any sense? Or
yeah.
So by the way, let's add this. Let's make this a little color here so we don't mess it up.
An easy one would be, it mentions integrations. So you can have integrations, and then for each integration, you have like an integration page.
So yes, exactly. So now again, because this is a SaaS, it's probably gonna need that. And again, we're doing the same twist. We're doing integrations, and we're doing integration. So if we copy the types of, this is going to be easier to explain. This would be what we're talking here now about Taskmaster. So for example, email integrations, it's a page, right? And then there it's listed out Gmail, Outlook, and whatever that would be. You see where this is going? Or does that make sense or no?
Yeah, I think you're doing an additional grouping than what I was thinking.
Yes, because you need to show Google what your site is about. And there's two different things. Okay, so there are, oh, by the way, and when we're talking here, that's why I'm saying, when we're looking at something like this, it's really hard to predict the anatomy of the site, because here we're trying to capture what needs to be grouped together with what and what needs to be linked to what for this to make sense for crawlers. Because let's remember, crawlers kind of don't know how to read things, but they can see connections by checking what links to what. So you're building these systems that will not be broken down when you grow the site. And here we're talking about something that can be predictable. That's why like typical SaaS website ends up having like 70 to 100 internal links per page on average on almost all pages. And they will have like 100-ish pages live on launch day, if we would call that launch, right? But then we can go with harder problems, because there's another kind of thing that I noticed with SaaS is it's a thing. It's sometimes we do, and now we're going into the actual content and scalability. So we had here describing that we have, where was it? Was there users? About users? So
yeah, there was startups, small businesses, and teams, was it? I can't remember.
So I still don't know. It depends case per case. Sorry, but imagine that user is again a group of use cases, right? And here we're going into actual some sort of blog type, because it can also be an article grouped by users, right? So this doesn't necessarily need to be. It's not necessarily need to be that we group articles per users or use cases. Has a unique way of just a new content type as in its own CMS. But it can have, and especially when we have schema markup coming into play and a lot of other things. So if we do that, then usually strategy here is some sort of long tail keywords, or short articles that are very, very specific, niche specific, that won't probably rank, but in theory it would be something how to use use like. And then some sort of our feature for accountants or something, right? I'm adding here, right? So that's where the magic starts. Like building a site, you have to start looking again at these tentacles at the end. And now we're getting into, after I explain this part, like we're getting into why we're doing this. Because probably this makes less sense than your approach, right?
I mean, yeah. Yes and no. Like everything that you're kind of saying, it kind of makes sense. But then from my perspective, it's like, okay, so you're going to list out all the features, but you need to know what those features are, right? So it's kind of like a chicken and egg, where it's like, okay, I need to understand the product and understand who the users are. Because like there you said, this feature for accountants. But you need to know that they're selling to accountants in order to create that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like understanding the whole product and kind of the wide view of who is it for, what are all the different types of users, and what are maybe their jobs, or what, like, how can you group these together? And then, just I think it's a different type of architecture. It's more like a content strategy or like content architecture rather than
this thing.
User flow or funnel, right?
Yes. So, and one thing to understand why you start from here is because you know that, so those end tentacles are touch points with search engines. So your homepage is optimized only for your brand name, nothing else. Like in very certain scenarios, your homepage can become eventually like a hub. If you type in website builder, Webflow shows up, but that's so long way down the road, and it costs so much money to get there, like hundreds of thousands of dollars to rank for a keyword like this, and energy and a lot of things. So basically, by designing tentacles first, head last, you try to build opportunities to catch those low-hanging fruits sooner than later, but also to explain better to search engines what, because by analyzing those tentacles, search engine better understands what is the head about, right? Because if we have like 300 words on your homepage, which is very common, how do search engines understand that this is it? You know, because we can publish this text right here, right, on our homepage and be like, yeah, we're done. But if each of these words link to a page specific about that topic, imagine how much more search engines understand about, oh, so these guys are actually doing this and solving that and solving for this. So you're trying to find, by analyzing your build from that tentacle perspective, you're looking for approaches that will be available. So for example, let's take track progress, right? So we can think about search intent behind this page, and that's where it all starts. Now we're going even deeper, like to the end of the tentacle. We're thinking about, okay, so track progress. What does it actually mean? Well, if I have, what kind of question I would type into Google or any other search engine to show up on this page, and that would be the solution. And that's where it all starts.
Yeah, there's one thing that I wanted to mention I forgot in terms of like listing features, which I find like a lot of people just list the how or like what the feature is, but actually it's much better to say what the benefits of that feature are. So like, oh, you're tracking progress. Well, the benefit of that could be, then you have a better understanding of, how long tasks take, for example, which is not necessarily what the feature is, but it's the benefit of that feature, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is a great example, actually, because I just want to make sure that we get to the same page, and now we're going to touch the colors and internal linking. So let's say we have a group for, okay, so track progress and time tracking. These are kind of two sub-features of the same group, and those would be, team management. By the way, we're just speculating here a little bit. All that is usually based on keyword research and tools and how many people look for that and how hard it is to rank for that and how many links do we need to build and how much content and how many words. Like there's a lot of other stuff. We're just speculating here briefly, like you just did with your site, as in, but this is quite accurate because I had like similar scenarios. So I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing. It's just more of a, this is not the specific product, but I had close products, not directly related to this one, but similar SaaSes that kind of ended up doing the same thing to work it out. So the feature group, which is like, that would happen here, if we want to just group these two on a page and have links to them, which we have to have, because that would explain to Google that, okay, so these are like related in that way. This would be some sort of, I don't know, payouts. No, what would it be?
Management?
Something like management,
Could
HR.
Either like people management or project management.
Project management. Okay, that's actually awesome because so basically we can all agree that this tool solves project management issues, right? And these are like here mentioned. There was deadlines, progress, communication, and other stuff, right? So it was easy to miss that part while building the site if you don't start from the bottom up, not from the top down, because it's very easy to miss that part. And here you're trying to have a page that links out to every feature page that is part of that project management process. So be it paying your people, your team, tracking process of your team, communicating, whatever it is, right? And on the flip side, on those pages, you're linking back to the project manager. Oh, I just made a spelling mistake. And why you need to do that? And we coming back from Felix's question was like, hey, can we chat about this part? So how do you deal with internal linking planning at this stage and search intent-based heading structures? That's exactly where we're at now. So by this point, we're trying to figure out how to rank for a project management tool. And that's probably like a, I don't know, a 10K investment to rank for that. Something like that. Let's guess, right? Just say, if your business says, hey, I want to rank for a project management tool, and say, well, that might cost you, and then you could explain like the cost. So there's going to be this much content. We have to write, I don't know, 30 blog posts about it. We have to link from those blog posts to your project management page. We have to create every sub feature has to have its own page, and then we're gonna write a few blog posts, and on top of that, we will do digital PR. So other websites start linking to you by saying project management, whatever, and then link to your main site. So imagine like how much energy we're putting to this one page. Webflow allows us to create those structures, spin them together, and start there if we do it correctly. Because it works. You have to, on your website, show to Google that this page is important. So link as many times, the more times you link on your page to, for example, how Google knows that homepage is the most important page? Because you link to it the most. Naturally, like every time any page has a homepage link, right? So
yeah, because the nav bar counts, right? So usually the logo links to the homepage. So
it's a shitty link because it doesn't, it's not descriptive. And that's why one part of accessibility is never use LEM or use project management tools or learn about project management or whatever. Don't do learn more in the card just because you're giving extra information about the crawler. Because every time you link to something and describe what is on that page, and crawler understands better what is on that page, honestly, because you just gave it. Explain, this is it, go there, you know. So any questions? Or because I could go forever, but at the same time I'm interested, like what you guys struggling now with here.
So is it like the more, like rule of thumb, the more specific pages you have that link to each other, the better?
They have to be clustered. I hope I got the question. If not, let's rephrase it, but I'll try to answer it. So they have to be grouped in some sort of way, because when you're grouping, for example, features, or by the way, and for those, last thing I'm going to add here, and then we jump. So that whole feature idea, it works the same as it would be. I'm sorry. No, what happened here? What did I do? I don't know this feature. Sorry, my bad. All right, should be better now. So it kind of runs on this. Anybody knows Figma enough to know what happened here? Finish everything. Why can't? Okay, technical difficulties. All right, let's try with this one then. Maybe it's better. Why I can't edit it? It's an image. Anyways, imagine that features is blog/something, and it's management blog, product management blog, project management blog, business blog, whatever. And then there you would find blog posts about on that topic. And then the blog post itself would be, of course, article, because you're listing out what it is, like the item. So you don't call articles, blog / and then it's an article. So it always follows the same structure. And there's a reason for that, because you want to group things together. And to group things together to show Google that this is related to that, this is related to this, and they all work as a group to fulfill the whole aspect of whatever it is. That's how we build like topical authority. So if you want to be project management tool like we're analyzing now, you're trying to cover all the bases of project management. You have to have all the project management features, all the sub-feature pages for project management, then write blog posts about project management. Whenever you mention any of those features or other blog posts, you link to them, and you became this buzzing big thing of wires that everything is connected to everything, but everything is about project management. If you open a new plethora of problems, for example, you're also, time tracking software. Again, you open this whole Pandora's box. You have to have what categories for that. You have to have articles about it. You have to have the main feature where it lists out all the sub features, as in tiny parts of what time tracking is parts of. So in theory, it's the same as atomic design completely, but it's just you have to understand you're designing a sitemap that will have to scale into the future. I completely forgot your question. Really sorry about that.
That's okay. I forgot too, but I have a new question.
Yeah.
So going back to the blog, and it's quite common that you have one CMS collection with all of the blog posts, and then you have a blog category CMS collection, which is, I don't know, it could be like news, it could be featured articles, or whatever all the different categories are. Are you suggesting that actually, so the way that I would structure it is you have those two CMS collections, and then in the they both have their templated page, and for the articles you're kind of selecting the category that they're referring to, and then you have like a category page with a list of articles. Are you saying that actually there's another step on top of that we can do for grouping, or would that be enough? Does that make sense?
Depends. For example, if you want to make a users page that is about to group everything together, if you're an accountant using our software, here's a few use cases. Here's the most important resource pages where you can learn basics of our software. Here's a few videos. Here's the most important blog posts about what we're writing about here. And when I say blog posts, articles, right? Articles and use cases, these are two different content types, therefore two different CMS collections, because articles we optimize for what's there already, and we make basically copies of what already exists in top 10 results. And then use cases, we maybe write just short but very informative, and no SEO, no bullshit, no keywords, no nothing, just like your accountant want to see how to use this formula inside our thing or connect this to sheets, here you go. And that's like really fun thing, right? So you have to understand that each CMS collection is a content type, and there's two main ones: category and the content itself. So does that answer the question? Or because you can group things as much. That's why clusters.
Because I guess when you say grouping, it's not necessarily the URL that changes, it's the content on the page. Is that right? Let me go on now.
So look, so in old school design, there was three types. There were tag, blog, and you can try to make your own thing. And I'm gonna. So there were tag, blog as in category, and there was article as in post. For those young viewers out there, this was back in WordPress times, and that was only three types of things, right? And how would they differ? Blog as in category with nest under itself. So this slug could become as long as you want it to be, /whatever, /whatever. That would be, so there's always like a hierarchy that is unbreakable, and a category cannot be in two places.
Yeah.
Tag was just group things together. Whatever they are, there's no connection. Tag is not connected to a tag. It's just, we're just using this as a tool to group things. An article was just body type. So we are kind of using the same elements. The only difference with Webflow, all those three are the same because it's called CMS collection. It's whatever the fuck you want. So we have an issue. We can come up with our own structures, and it can be both a content body and a way to group things and solve a lot of other things. But that's where things get hard, because you still have to produce slugs that compete with other slugs of the same type on the search results. So you cannot come up with your own new unique way for search intent, which we barely touch, by the way. And I want to run through a few comments that we had. But it's all based on search intents. There's 4 different main types of search intents. Let me find my most beloved graph. And by the time I'm going to find it, do ask the question you had or continue. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's more like, because you said with the Webflow CMS, for example, you can't nest a CMS inside of a CMS to create like a multi-folder URL, right? And so my question is, like, is that a limitation that you see for SEO and for crawlers? Is that like an important step of SEO?
That's actually an improvement, but every old school SEO will hate it. It makes you completely rewire your neurons, like completely. Like everything you know, not everything, like 20% of what you know goes into the trash can, and you have to rethink the same stuff. Just because it's actually cleaner, it's better for the user, and I would argue that it's better as opposed of not getting, /shoes /red/sneakers / with stripes /Nike.
Yeah,
that's what
no
we're doing.
No one likes a long URL, right?
But I still need the same page.
Fine, yeah.
And that's where heading structure comes into play. So now when we determine what links to what, which is, do you imagine what it means to build a site like that when you know that there's like 30, 70, 100 outgoing links on almost any page, and you have to make sense that it doesn't break the system? That's why I usually make these kind of subtype tiny sites, sitemaps that show what links to what. That's where the colors come into play. I usually show that it's just like, hey, the CMS is red, but this is green, but this, and then you just show on the global overview what links to what to make sure nothing breaks in the long term. And you're doing all of that because of, this is my beloved, I love this graph. I always know where to find it when I need it, because I cannot do better unless I copy the same thing. So this just explains 4 types of search intents online, and each one of your pages have to be, and headings on it, and the URL itself have to be anatomically developed to solve one of these 4. Most Webflow agencies solve only the navigational one, which is mostly what the sitemap you kind of toss together. Homepage is usually navigational. Like eventually, yes, it starts ranking for the things you do, but in theory, the goal of it is to be, if I type in your brand name and I'm already brand aware, I press enter and I go to Webflow because I already know what Webflow is. I don't need to Google for website builder, which is a different story, right? So navigational would be just, I'm already brand aware. I know what it is. It starts with informational, which is usually your blog, and that means I'm problem aware. I know that I need some sort of management tool. We have to something online, team remote COVID hit. I don't know what it is. How do I start that? And I start asking these how, why, what, whatever, tutorial to managing your business online. I don't know, stuff like that. I'm not even aware of what solutions are there. I only know there's a problem. Then eventually you pass into next 2 ones, which are commercial and transactional. Those are very similar, but at the same time, very different in nature. So commercial is where most sites make most of the money, and transactional is where your clients probably usually are. So commercial means you're trying to pick the right one. And that's where you're not going to usually rank for yourself. So for example, if we have this tool, Taskmaster, it would be just one of the tools suggested. It would be best project management tools, and then you Google that, and some other site wrote about Taskmaster, but also 10 others. So top 10 task management tools for, and then usually it's for accountant firms or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's how it rolls, because ranking for top 10 task management tools are very hard. Ranking for what we call long-term keyword, top 10 task management tools for accountants is a bit easier. And if I add female accountants, it becomes completely like nobody Googles that. So no, hypothetically, by the way, just adding. And if it's like redhead female accountant, it's for sure nobody Googles that. So, but then Google would still show the female accountants post or whatever. So that's how, remember that whole /bike /shoe /whatever / that's where it all comes. Like, that's why we're used to this system, because there's no other way to think about information anatomically. And yeah, so that's why we're jumping with the commercial is usually somebody else comparing you with other things and providing you solutions to a problem that you're already aware that you're seeking for this solution, as opposed to seeking for how to solve a problem. And then the next one is where our clients on Webflow usually are. They want only transactional value, as in, so I have to get my team on in this case Taskmaster or something, right? That's when they Google and then Taskmaster pricing or buy. And this is in e-commerce stores. These are categories and products where they go. Where commercial would be like best online shoe shops, and you would find like a list of them. And then transactional would be when you actually look for a specific buy this shoe. That's why you need all that anatomy, because your shoe has to have each different solution that you have. Transactional solution has to have a page for it. That's where the features come in. If I'm looking for accounting software for small freelance agencies, that's probably a feature this tool solves. It wouldn't need to have a page for that. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it does.
I missed a few questions, guys. I saw it, but we were just chatting. So Felix asks, let's do a different approach. Yeah, Felix asks, does every group need to have their own page though? Can't you have an example integrations page and then the groups of integrations and section of the page with links only of the individual? Are we talking about nesting collections, as in filtering CMS on page? So having just integration static page as opposed of each integration group having its own? And the answer is, if that's that, then it should have, because that still provides more information and also provides content teams ability to optimize it. As in, if we're optimizing this for email, task management tools that integrate with email providers, right? And then we can list out Gmail, Outlook, whatever. And then the other one will have different headings. That's why we're fighting for these H1s. So when I write in slugs, I actually think in H1s, but that would be a process really hard to explain, because when I type in /something, I actually think about the H1 and what problem it solves, because I'm used to it. But that would be another whole story. You would need to work with me on actual product. Yeah.
Should it match the slug and the H1?
The intent has to match. So slugs, I would say can be short. So the shorter, the better, as long as it kind of doesn't break the system. And also you cannot cannibalize yourself. So you cannot have in your page multiple pages that trying to rank for the same thing, because that really becomes a problem master of none. Because then then Google says, you know what? None of these. If all of them are at the same quality, then none of these.
Right. So you should have like one page for a specific thing, but not try to, like, it's useless to try and rank for project management for all pages trying to rank for project management. All pages should try and rank for a specific thing in project management. Yeah.
Yes. If there are such things, because we're assuming that we haven't done the keyword research. We haven't done a lot of things. We haven't looked into user behavior in the search results to determine any of these being valid or not. We're just analyzing the thinking pattern itself as in, but yes, you're correct. And to add one more thing on that heading thing, you saw my example of how I solved this on my own website, how to have cheeky copy and at the same time not break the system.
Go and show us.
So yeah, so let me do the, so I had an issue where somebody suggested to me to change the headings a little bit because it was very SEO-y. And let me check if you guys see this. Yeah, you see the sidebar, right? The heading checker that kind of runs the anatomy check. So if we look into the heading checker, it just says Webflow content and SEO agency. That's what we do, right? That's what our heading should be like. But for user, it doesn't say that. And then we continue. H2 is content marketing team. These three things that need to be in theory here. But then it's like SEO for Webflow, grow Webflow website traffic, scale Webflow sites, and all the stuff, right, that we do. But when you're a user and I turn this off, that's not what you actually see. You read something else, and that's my all this tale as all this time Webflow cheat when I have to keep the copy, but the tag, the headings don't make any sense, and search intent needs different ones. So we just do the tagline and bam. Is that cool or what?
So one thing to keep in mind is, the H1 doesn't necessarily need to be the biggest thing on the page.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Design. That's one's design. I'm so bad.
But usually, like, I don't know, it's kind of, I've seen it a lot of times where it's like, the title has to be H1 and then the subtitle H2 and so forth, right? But actually, you're saying H1 should be the most important thing for SEO, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the big title on your page. Right? No.
Can you repeat the question? I got the question. Just repeat while I'm thinking. So the question was?
It was more of a statement where I see a lot of the time when designers just design and you have the H1 being, the big title on your site, and then it goes down to like your H2 and so forth. But you're saying from an SEO perspective, the H1 doesn't necessarily need to be the big title. The H1 should be what's relevant for SEO.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the search intent. What are you looking when you want to find my company? You're looking for Webflow SEO agency or content team that can run your Webflow site. That has to be the H1. That's it.
Yeah. The big title.
I can optimize another page for that, which would not be my home page, assuming that leaving my page as a navigational search intent for when they know what content nest is. But if they don't, then then this is what they're going to type into Google. They're going to type in Webflow SEO something, Webflow content something. That's why H1 has all of that.
All the juicy keywords.
Yeah. So, and that's the trick. You just do what you do here is, of course, you make this a text block, and then style it as a heading. But it's just text. It's no heading. No heading tag is there. So that's why the good rule of thumb for designers and developers doing this is if I turn this off the whole site and I just look at the headings map, if I read only this, can I understand what this page, what problem it solves, what it's about, and would something similar you would type into Google for the solution that you're seeking that is this website? You don't need to look at the site. You just check this. Like if I read this, and the more I can understand about a company, the more actually the crawlers will understand, and the more easy your users will eventually find, given that the site ranks. That's another whole plethora of how to get there, but like in theory, just anatomically speaking, you need that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe a stupid question, but do crawlers mainly look at H tags and not text?
They look at everything. First, they look at the head, and meta game is becoming more and more. Meta. So schema markup and the structured data itself becomes more and more. And the better schema markup you have on your site, the less you have to leave for, the less content you need to, not the less, the less you have to communicate with crawlers on other content that is rendered actually for users. So the more better schema you can add, but at the same time, some things you cannot add to schema. And heading page is like your, I don't know, if you're a doctorate and you're writing a very long dissertation, that's your, I have to be able to read this and understand what I'm going to read, because it's 200 pages now, like of the dissertation itself. So your page, every page is the same. It's like a short book. That's why I usually say, like, you think about the page as a book. So every CMS collection item, every static page, whatever is a static book. And I have to understand what this book is about by just looking at the heading structure. And I have to know what problem it would solve by just looking at H1, which is the title of the book.
Yeah.
And when we create that, then I use categories to put those books together into shelves. And when whatever says, hey, I have an issue about project management, well, go to that shelf. It has all the books that we covered about that subject, and then just pick a subtopic of it, so one page, and just go with it, which is links to those books. And your whole website is a library. That's why, coming back to this idea, that's why we're building this, because we don't know what kind of library we're building, because to make things worse, all this insane architecture has to be reachable from homepage with 3 clicks or less. I cannot do it. Crawlers get confused. Don't disturb crawlers. Crawlers have to understand that from homepage in 3 clicks or less, they reach the end, any page that exists on your site, which sounds easier said than done when you have like a few hundred pages.
Yeah.
So yeah. What do you think? It's different?
I mean, it's different, yeah. It's, because I guess from a human perspective, you always see what you can see, right? But you're just like opening it up and looking under the bonnet and seeing, okay, what do crawlers see, not just humans, which is super interesting.
It's, in theory, that's true, but in practice, you actually think the same thing you guys do. I think the same thing, but I think from how to get people from the door perspective, like you guys are thinking about what happens when they get into the store. I'm thinking how to get people to stop their cars, park them, and which road we have to build them. And just the metaphor doesn't work here because those roads are all over the place. So we're trying to, build doors on the roads that make sense to you guys. And then you can do that traffic, whatever you want. And of course, we intersect at this point where I say, well, this page has to have 3,000 words. Sorry, do whatever you want to do, but I can give you those 3,000 words and they have to be all those words. Now Google is becoming more and more semantic. So it's not as spammy as it was back in the day, and it's easier to do things. But as long as we build things in clusters, so we plan like 30 to 50 pages, and we cover everything on this topic, on this subject, become ourselves professionals, then even shorter texts make more sense to Google because they just fact check that you know what you're talking about in 30 other places on your site, as opposed to, just wrote one. Why won't you trust me? Because I don't know if you can write the second one like this. So yeah, let's check the comments a little bit. So Felix was following up on the group part with hope he's making sense, hard to explain. Yeah, I know it's hard to explain. That's one of the reasons why we moved from Twitter Spaces to YouTube, because it was impossible to explain there, and it's still hard here. And he says, it seems like a lot of pages will not have content, much content on them. There's two ways. You either optimize more content or you build more links to your page. There's two types of ranking, because SEO is just two parts. It's links, backlinks, so other sites voting for you as an answer to something, and then content on your page proving that you answered that problem. So content is usually not the problem. The problem is how everything is connected. So Sergey says he had to leave, and I get that, but I think he's gonna look it through. And he already mentioned a few times that he's gonna rewatch some of the parts, because I know this is not. Yeah, we're barely touching the surface. And Felix is saying one more question. So let's imagine it's a startup and budget is pretty small for design and development. How would you take this information architecture and make it as an MVP that can scale in the future? Alessia, what do you think? How would I do that?
Well, I think with CMS collections, it's something that the client can manage internally quite well, right? Because as long as you create all of the templates for each of the CMS collection, so these could be the actual article or the groups that you mentioned before, so all the clustering, and all the kind of like connected CMS have the filters, so you're only seeing the relevant features, for example, for that group and things like that. Then it's up to the client to keep creating those pages, I guess, as long as all the linking is set up correctly from the start.
No?
Yeah.
No, I mean, yes. Just trying to realize that usually we have to understand that the use case we're picking here, it's not a $1,000 euro monetary value token cash site or something, right? It's a bit bigger than that, one. And two, it's when I do stuff like that, it's usually we work on clustering. So there's like version 0.1 and then like 9 or 3 or 4 or 2 versions in between to version 1. Version 1 probably will have like 16 CMS collections or something. Usually like for SaaSes, that's kind of end up where we end up by theory, by default. Because when we're talking feature and then features, but these guys also had two types of Android plus iPhone plus Mac plus that's another collection, and you know where this is going. Like there's everything's spinning together, connected. That's why those five connections, as in I forgot how those fields are called when you connect to another collection.
The
multi-reference.
Multi-reference, yeah.
So reference and multi-reference fields, the limitation is there, 5. That's the problem usually I have, because it's really a big problem. Because we cannot nest things to infinity, then we have to run with that. And I would say the answer is like you build the most important. So the most important would probably be features. And honestly, it's very not hard to have both features and feature, as in the group and the end smaller feature, kind of have the same design, like almost identical very easily. And then the same would follow. There's other types of groups, for example, grouping features by platform, so that could be another identical collection. The only thing you do is switch things around. So that's how we usually plan sites. We plan the V whatever, which would have this cluster, which is like called features, and it includes like usually 2, 3, 4, up to 5, 6, usually maximum. But then it's very complex software. I have like 5, 6 CMS collections spinning together to represent all the features that need to be coherently spin together. But then the blog, with its own tagging and collection system, category system, it's another story. And then users and use cases, and even you can do the same we sometimes even do for, just so it's not subdomain, if it makes sense. And if it's smaller tool, maybe you also do documentation within the same site. So just make resources as a category for documentation, and you make the learn or whatever page for each small article. So the answer is like by grouping things together and planning in versions, because yeah, everybody needs features now, but they might need the use case thing way when they have use cases. So yeah.
Yeah. And then from a design perspective, like you said, if budget is tight, you can have these components that you're reusing for all the different pages. So the downside is that all the pages kind of look very similar to each other. So it might not be as attractive for someone navigating through all the different pages if they look the same, but it keeps budget down.
I'll add one thing to this. Actually, very good point. I love it. So one thing people, and I see design agencies forget, is that let me grab another color. So if we come to our octopus idea, it's people forget that, okay, so if you're like on Twitter and then somebody finds you, then they go to the homepage, right? And their use case, they go to maybe pricing, and then they just create an account, whatever, right? So it's cash money, right? Okay, so that's how they reached your purpose, right? But when you build a site, but that's no actual search traffic. When you have search traffic, they will come here because they Googled for it, and they're gonna jump to this. They haven't even been on your homepage. They just went from here to pricing. And that's where the difficulty starts. And then maybe there's like a category that also, and then maybe there's a category, yeah, that just went. Oh, and then let's say there's a category that has a few tentacles out, right? And they land on that category from search results. And now again, they go to pricing. So that's what you're trying to prepare. Like great sites get not a lot of traffic to their homepage directly from search results.
Yeah,
that's the strategy you're planning for, and I think that's the hard part, because otherwise your client has to send everything to homepage, and that's not from search results. Then they're working on social media strategies and things like that, right? So yeah, if anybody has any last questions, because we already had like a nice, I hope I didn't bore too many people with this. It's yeah. Is it something that you would start to consider thinking for yourself now when building sites, or is it something left for professionals, or what do you think about that?
No, I think it makes sense, especially for organic, like growth and like search. It just makes sense. So it would be stupid not to, I think.
It's not necessarily needed all the time. We had a stream with Marcia from Friends Agency where we spent same hour and a half talking about every possible business and do or do they not need SEO. And there were quite a lot, which that's the best strategy. Like you're going to waste so much money, because an example would be like, agency. I have an agency, you guys have an agency. It's not the best strategy to have SEO first. Like, oh, we're going to get our clients from SEO. Neither you nor we get our clients from SEO. And it's intentionally bad when you're an SEO agency and you say, no way we're getting clients from SEO that easily. But we know it. Like, and if you would be a client and come to us and we would analyze your business and say, yeah, I don't know, probably not the best idea. Like do some social media, create a TikTok or whatever. That's probably not the best. But if you're like an e-commerce brand, for example, and want to sell shoes, hypothetically,
yep,
amazing outcome. And there's a lot of other industries. Like if you're a SaaS company, of course, you're not going to go to the streets with the posters and say, hey, install our tool. Just don't want to do that. So yeah. Felix is saying great. And I think this is the end of the stream, guys. This was awesome. Thanks, Alessia, for coming. It was
Thanks
really
so much
nice
for having me.
this was awesome to hear the perspective. And I actually was really happy that you showed exactly what I kind of was expecting, because that whole head first approach and tentacles first approach, that's why if there's like a takeaway from all of this, anybody's watching 90 minutes later, it's, I think, different professionals focus on different things. And to run a successful site, you need so many different types of professionals, because they will be focusing on something, but might leaving out something else. And that's normal. And that's why we should be friends. And that's why we should be chatting about that. Have any other closing arguments?
Well, I think collaboration is always the best. So getting all the experts of like different topics, and then it will always give the best result. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Felix. Thanks, Sergey. Thanks, Raymar, for dropping by. Thanks, everybody who was here today. And thanks, Alessia, especially. This was awesome. Really liked doing this. And I hope to see you one more time here, or 2 or 30 more times. I think there's a lot of topics that we touched that it would be interesting to start from there, because there's so many things that we just, I think, circled like a small problem, but there's like a lot of others, like, because this was just a fake example. And in reality, this would be just like 3 hours of work for your client, or like 3 days of work for your client. And then the next step comes, and what's that next step? So it would be a lot of interesting kind of thinking of how design and development agency thinks versus a marketing and SEO and content agency things, because these are like 2 different attitudes towards websites, right?
Yeah. And we often collaborate with marketing agencies. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
It's so fun. I so love, for example, I really love that you guys do what you do, because then I don't need to think about it.
Yeah. Really, well, likewise.
Yeah. Jay last week was here. It seemed like, I'm so happy the guy is obsessed with conversion. Because honestly, we're trying to get people through the door. And if we're also taking care of how they walk to the end, it becomes really hard, because then we cannot just, go drastic expansions and do cool things or come up with something. It really becomes hard if you also have to watch everything. Yeah. That's usually what the internal team of a business does, right? Then each person does something, and that's why different agencies exist, right?
For sure.
All right. Thanks, guys, everybody. And a quick reminder about what we were having here today. For those still at the end, we had like our friend Octopus that we were going to probably frame and sell as an NFT one day. But while we're at it, today we had Alessia here, and follow her on Twitter. She's a Framer and Webflow expert, and she's also mentors people about startups. So, ping her about that if you wanna, and then also be sure to check out their resources, their agency Code and Wonder. Be sure to check out Flow Tools. It's really cool resource page for all types of things. And then also they have their own class naming system, Flow Class, which was kind of awesome. When I was looking at it, it really kind of resonated with me. It's like, it seems like a simple enough understanding of how to build things on Webflow. And yeah, and I was Search Historian. We run a Webflow SEO agency, so we can scale your sites. Oh, and by the way, if you're a Webflow developer designer, don't forget we have like a referral/affiliate program where we communicate with your agency, and our agency help your agency and your clients, and everybody wins. Your clients win, we win, you win, everybody wins. So yeah, so that was that. Thanks, Alessia, for joining us. It was awesome.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye, guys. See ya. Have a good one. Bye.